All right. It's time to recap for 3 weeks. I was out of pocket, couldn't do a video for week 17. Week 18, I was still overseas. Week 19 was last week where I got back, but had too much crap to do, couldn't do a video. So we've got all these results to discuss. I don't think the video is going to take particularly longer than normal because I'm not going to go back and really look week by week at all the specific results. But I have all the data. The numbers are crunched. The spreadsheet is updated. I have new DTLs. So I think we'll treat it basically just like a week 19 recap video. It'll just be there may be opportunity for there to be like bigger jumps than you would traditionally expect with 1 week. So let's start here. These are the results from this week. So I beat French despite horrendous pitching numbers. The offense was strong. Frank destroys Maffey, and this is super interesting. We'll talk about all the ramifications later. But Maffey's in a tough spot. Uh, Casey gets the win over JW, which I don't know if it's the result either of them wanted. So this is again, this is the weirdness of the late season in this year where the Otani sweepstakes are here. Alex beats Brad handedly. Might have been the death blow for Brad. He's probably not going to be able to scrap to get Otani at this point, I think, after that big of a loss. Alex is really good, so it's obviously no shame in that, but that may be it. And he barely lost in a couple categories too, it looks like, or at least there were some pretty close ones. But that's a shame for Brad. Anything can still happen though, 2 weeks left. Bo gets a pretty big win over Corey, and Bo also is sort of in this danger zone where he may F around and make the playoffs. We'll see. The numbers weren't exactly great in the pitching side of things, but it was good enough to still win plenty of categories. And the offense was, looked okay. So Nate crushes Jeremiah. Nate's looking pretty formidable, even though that a couple of these numbers also were not really great. Um, Jeremiah's been struggling, so it's not weird or anything to see a pretty significant win here. Let's get into some of the numbers. I think first and foremost, here is your update of the standings. And as much as I like this interface a little bit better than what it used to be, let's zoom in a bit to get a little bit better picture. So Nate has taken first in the standings. I think we were tied like last week, maybe, but it's been a little while. So Nate's up 4 games. And getting that 1 seed is important because if you do end up in a tie, the higher seed wins. So deadlock would favor Nate right now between the two of us, for example, or Nate and anybody in the playoffs. You buy yourself, no pun intended, the win in a tie if you get that bye and you get the first seed. Nate's won 6 games in a row. I'm right behind him. I've won 8 in a row. So the two of us are definitely trending the right direction. Frank and Alex both following right behind. The four of us are locked in. We will not miss the playoffs. There's basically no mathematical scenario where that could possibly happen at this point. Just a matter of seeding. I don't know if there's really a case to be made that, Frank or Alex are significantly way better than each other, where Nate and Justin then would be jockeying to try to get like the easy matchup. There's basically 4 teams at the top. Well, you might even say there's 2 teams at the top and then 2 teams just below. But I think that those 4 teams are definitely the favorites to advance to that second round. And we're likely to have some really high quality matchups at the semis, if not in the first round. Frank's won 2 in a row. Alex has won 4 in a row. JW got the loss this week, which was bad news for him because he's only 4 games above Bo, who's only 2 games above Casey, who's only 3 games above Maffey. So JW still not safe, but 4 games up. It's a decent little lead, right? You can have a pretty bad week and probably still at least stay in sixth. So JW probably needs to win one of these last 2 games by a couple categories, but he's looking good to be in the playoffs, but not safe. Bo in sixth place, fresh off of a win, and that is not where he wants to be, I believe, right? He'd rather have Otani, I think. And pretty funny in that right now in the standings, Bo owns both of these picks just outside of the premier range, and Casey owns both of these picks. Just perfect, right? Otani and Witt joining Casey next season if it stays like this. Potentially, I don't know who the second pick might be, but so it's quite interesting that these four picks are owned by two teams, but right now Bo's on the decidedly worse end of the stick when it comes to the actual draft picks for next year. So we're sure to see a lot of things changing hands these last 2 weeks. It's going to get kind of crazy. But yeah, here's some of the data. I mean, the rest of this really doesn't probably matter. Brad, I think, has slipped a little bit too far to really conceivably move up to sixth, knowing that Bo and Casey are both vying for it. Um, and Brad is playing JW and KC these last 2 weeks. The JW matchup, I expect JW's fighting as hard as he can to win. Brad would need a really big week to basically kick JW's ass in order to get in the range for Otani. And I wouldn't expect that. And then that last week, Casey and Brad may both be fighting to win a little bit, but not a ton. It's going to be crazy. That last week's going to be crazy. French, Jeremiah, and Corey round us out. They've all three been eliminated from Otani contention at this point. Mathematically, it's just not possible. But certainly, they still have reason to want to finish as high as they can to get the best draft pick that they can. And the three of them are all really close. Corey even plays French this week, and that should be. You would think it wouldn't matter a whole lot, right? They're at the bottom of the standings, not getting Otani, but getting the fourth pick's much better than getting the sixth pick. So there's still reason for them to really be locked in as well. Jeremiah's facing Frank and Maffey, who both really want to win. So Jeremiah's looking like an uphill climb for right now. A quick look at kind of what the next 2 weeks of the schedule looks like. Nate and Jeremiah both have like the hardest path left if you want to rate people based on power rankings. So Nate has to finish the season against a desperate Maffey who doesn't even have his first. Yes, definitely is trying as hard as possible to win. And then Frank, who's been a really good team. And that honestly could be a matchup that they then see again in 2 weeks, maybe, depending on how final standings shake out. So Nate definitely has a firm playoff test, if you will, these last 2 weeks. I am playing Bo and Corey. Bo, who pretty much desperately needs to lose this week, and then Corey, who hasn't had a lot of success this season, though he certainly will want to try to win. A lot of the talent got shipped out, so even though there's a 4-game gap between Nate and I don't think that the first seed has been decided quite yet. And then there's really not a whole lot for Alex and Frank to play for, other than if they prefer to face Nate or Justin in the second round. Maybe one of them wants to fight whoever's in the sixth seed. So finishing third is how you would get that, so that they don't have to play JW, for example, perhaps. Otherwise, yeah, we have this big group in the middle: JW, Bo, Casey, Maffey, even Brad, just in case, all fighting to try to solidify their preferred positions, and they all have identical strength of schedule. Looking at the luck, no, I'm sorry, this is just your flat regular VTL ratings. I am ahead by 2% over Nate with 2 weeks left. It's probably going to finish out like that. Justin, then Nate, then Frank, then Alex. Those are almost locked in, unless there's a terrible, terrible week and an elite week by anyone else to flip flop. Maffey and JW are just above the cut line, if you will, but both of their batting has been pretty bad and both their pitching has been pretty good. So interesting kind of similarity there across all of these VTL numbers. Corey's still in seventh in VTL. Feasibly, he could finish as high as fifth this season and still be like way down in the standings. It's pretty wild how that's worked out. Bo, Casey, Brad, French, Jeremiah, all reasonably close. And then, more or less that same kind of thing is echoed over here with the luck ratings. Nate, Justin, and Frank have each been pretty lucky. Bo has also been a little bit lucky. Maffey, Jeremiah, and Corey have been pretty unlucky. Brad, too, a little bit. Nothing really new over there. So the power rankings for this week, I've bumped Nate up to number one. This week, we both were a little bit shaky on pitching. He was less so. I think he has been beating me each of the last 3, maybe even more weeks if you were to do head-to-head. He seems like he's got the edge right now, despite maybe having a slight gap in VTL. It doesn't look like right now that matters. I think Nate's the team to beat. He had the strongest deadline. He's the favorite, I believe, though it is still possible I could pass him in the standings and finish in first, technically, maybe have that subtle head-to-head kind of tiebreaker if we tie, if we do play each other in the playoffs. But I think Nate's number one. I think I'm obviously number two behind him there. Frank and Alex have been 3, 4 respectively for a while, but there's not a great gap between them. They're both tier B. And then I have a pretty big tier C. It's JW, Bo, Matthew, and Casey. Again, I think JW and Matthew clearly want in, and Bo and Casey clearly want out. But the standings are such that I'm not sure if Matthew is going to be able to make the playoffs. So the individual scenario for Matthew this week is he plays Nate. Nate and I are both trying to get that one seed, right? Nate's not interested in letting off the gas for any reason, right? There's no point for us to do that, the higher end teams. So Matthew's going to have to legitimately beat Nate this week in order to not lose further ground. And if he goes into the final week of the season, 5, 6, 7, 8 games back of seventh place, of sixth place rather, that's not really a feasible gap to bridge in 1 week unless you're talking like 15-1 with some help from the teams that are in here. And so if Matthew does not make the playoffs, that means Bo or Casey are making the playoffs, one of the two. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens this week. Alex plays Casey, Justin plays Bo. So, I mean, it's quite feasible that both of those matchups could go to the strong, quote unquote, strong team. Uh, but it's a pretty interesting little chess match because if you lose too badly, like if Casey and Bo are trying to lose and they lose too badly, they may end up vaulting themselves into eight, or maybe out of Otani's spot, right? I don't think any team really knows exactly how to handle this going in. But like, let's just say if Casey or Bo go down 2-14 this week, like they may slip too far down the standings. And so, and frankly, there may not be anything they can do to keep from losing. It could be that those big good teams just win big anyways, right? So it's very interesting to see. I think we're going to have some chaos the last 2 weeks of the season, and I think it's going to be quite fun. And frankly, it seems like that's probably the most dramatic piece of the league right now, not even the race for number one or the race to get into the playoffs, because I think JW's probably in because he's going to try, and he is surrounded by teams that are probably going to try to tank. Matthew is the one that I just don't know the specific luck to have to play Nate right now when I am on his heels and he knows that there's a chance I could pass him for number one in week 21. I have a hard time seeing Mac make the playoffs right now. And he does play Jeremiah the last week of the season, but Jeremiah is motivated to try to win as many games as he can to get out of the cellar and get a better pick, even if it's by one spot. So there shouldn't be some big, easy week, even in week 21 for Matthew. It's going to be really interesting to see. And then Casey's in kind of a similar boat. He's currently in the pole position. He has Otani right now. If the season ended, he'd add the number one and the number two picks because he owns Matthew's pick. But Bo surely is going to try to lose this week, I would think. And so Casey needs to stay below him. It's going to be weird. We will see. I hadn't looked at this literally at all, so I don't know what we're going to see if I check this. But let's just look really quickly at what the numbers are for T3 so far. So over weeks 15 to 21, so we've got 4 weeks down, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, 5 weeks. Here are our VTLs. So total VTL, I'm at 65.8 over that 5 week stretch. Nate is at 64.3. Frank is at 60.2, pretty close. Alex at 58.4. And no one else is above 52. So JW and Brad matched up this week, I believe, are both at 51. So there's basically 4 teams that are going good right now. Everyone else is very average or bad. If you look specifically at these individual VTLs, we are seeing some super team-esque figures here with batting. So Nate and myself both over 70% batting, both of us hovering right around 60% pitching. And Frank is hovering around 60% on both. Batting, 55% pitching. So we're going to have some pretty steep competition here once we get around to the playoffs, I think. Should be fun. I'm glad that it isn't simply just a 2-horse race, even if those two teams maybe have the slight edge. Guys are pretty much right on the heels, Frank and Alex. Anyway, one last note. I thought this was a pretty great ChatGPT image for the week, and it was the first take. So you got Dubsy Dimes over here, Bo, Nico Harrison. You got the frosted mini wheat looking creepy in the background. Peaked in April, and they're all. I don't know if all these hands are correct or if we got some extra hands thrown in here, but the gist is you got a little showdown going here. How it all will shake out, who knows? But it's going to be fun to monitor, I think. So that's all I got. Sorry, I missed a couple weeks in between. Um, I might even throw in like an additional video here, like this final week of the season coming up, maybe this week as well, just as a midweek check-in to kind of further add to the drama of kind of where we are with standings and how all of these races are shaking out. But we'll see. That's all I got, though. See you next time.